Hey, welcome everyone. I'm glad you can join us today as we talk about navigating the realities of eProcurement in 2025. I'm Kevin Kazmaier, Vice President of Strategic Business Enablement at TradeCentric, and today I'm joined by two members of my team, Lisa Davis and Zach Erickson. Now, Lisa and Zach, they're both segment account managers, and they talk to B2B buyers every single day. They work with procurement teams across all procurement platforms, and they really help identify ways to remove friction from the procure to pay process and maximize the most value out of those buyers' investments. Welcome, Zach and Lisa.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Kevin.
lot, Kevin.
All right, well, again, thanks for joining us, and let's just jump into it. So, both of you are talking to buyers and procurement teams every single day, and I think it would be helpful if we started off with understanding what are you hearing from them? What are the realities they are facing, and are there any common messages or underlying themes that you're hearing?
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, absolutely. A big theme that I have found is that teams feel stuck. They've made the investment in an e-procurement platform, rolled it out, added suppliers, but they're still dealing with a lot of manual work like emailing POs, keying in invoices, and chasing down exceptions, and in some cases, resorting back to credit cards just to move the purchases along.
Yeah, and to jump in, exactly, right? And usually it's one or two people juggling those tasks on top of five other responsibilities. And sure, teams want to be efficient and compliant. Uh, and while automation sounds great, it's hard to prioritize when the day-to-day already feels a little overwhelming. And so what we often hear is we're good or we have a team for that when connecting. But it's because they're fine with the status quo, since the idea of adding more work is daunting. But when we ask good questions and dig a bit deeper, it becomes clear there's still a lot of pain and manual work under the surface that could be supported.
Wow. Okay. So based on those responses, it sounds like there's a lot of friction in the procurement process and that maybe it isn't always communicated. Or as like you said, Zach, it's just assumed to be part of the daily grind. So what does all this extra work actually look like from their side?
I mean, it's usually a mix of things that can lead to issues that happen throughout the P2P or procure to pay process. I guess if we break it down, one, hosted catalogs that need constant updates to keep items and pricing current, as well as users that are going outside of their system because they can't quickly find what they need. Two, suppliers that still require email-based POs or manual efforts to receive a PO from the procurement system. And then third, I would say emailed or PDF invoices from suppliers that involve a lot of steps to get it. I guess A, entered into their system, B, reconciled, and then C, approved for payment. So it can become cumbersome.
And I agree, Zach. And what stands out to me is often how often teams just accept those workarounds as normal. Whether it's chasing down invoices or tracking approvals manually, buyers will say it's working. But once we dig in, they realize how much time and control they're actually losing and how few of their suppliers are truly integrated throughout these processes.
Okay, so all this extra work then has to have some type of impacts, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I can jump in, I'd say some of the bigger impacts that we've uncovered are lost visibility of overall spend. So purchase orders going outside of the system, off contract or I guess non-approved spend, and those are orders being placed on P cards and T&E cards. And then, payment delays and open invoice, right? And that's a lot of downstream reconciliation efforts for the procurement team just to get one PO paid. And ultimately, it all leads to a lot of extra work and delays from a system that is supposed to be bringing efficiency and savings, right?
Hmm, for sure.
So, Kevin, you've been to many procurement shows recently. What are you hearing? Are buyers ready for automation or still hesitant?
Yeah, so I've actually had the pleasure of being invited to several procurement shows this past spring, and I can definitely tell you that there are some common themes across all of them. And, first off, let's get this out of the way. everyone's talking AI and how AI is going to be applied somewhere throughout the procurement process. And while there's a place for that in the procurement platform, it doesn't remove the fact that I still need good, clean supplier data to leverage AI effectively. And then even when I think about just my general procurement processes, one analyst actually put it pretty good, where he said the fundamental procurement goals of visibility, compliance, risk mitigation, and savings still remain the same, right?
Mhm.
So if you take that aside and think about some of the breakout sessions that were held, most of them all focused around smart procurement and how to drive more compliance, improve visibility of supplier offerings, and even including connecting more punch-out catalogs, and then gaining 100% adoption of users across the organization, right? And finally, improving on the invoice reconciliation process. There's one session that I thought was really interesting because it was relevant and it talked about how this organization had 37 punch-out catalogs in place today. Now that seems to be high considering some of the buyers that we speak to, but they continue to strive for more because they feel it helps drive efficiency throughout their organization. And the analytics actually proved it out, right? The analytics showed that the average user was taking only 4 minutes to create a punch out order versus 19 for all other shopping methods. And then the reconciliation process for those non punch out orders also took an additional 31 minutes.
Mhm.
So in the end, they were noting that they actually lost 3 to 10% per transaction when they utilize processes outside of their procurement, including P cards,
Yeah.
right? So I think, based on the interest in these sessions and the attendance from the buyers and the engagement throughout these shows, the buyers are really looking for ways to drive change, but they're also hoping that their suppliers can help.
Right. So the buyers are definitely ready, but there's a perception that it'll be expensive or take too much internal effort to implement change. So one buyer told me, my team is already stretched thin with invoice reentry and everything else. We don't have time for a big integration project.
Oh, I totally agree, right? I mean, it's a heads down approach, right? But at some point that the work becomes mundane, right? And then ultimately you start to lose resources from procurement because, my job isn't exciting anymore. And procurement is really all around supplier relationship management. So I think like, hey, let's get back to that. Let's talk to suppliers about the pain and friction they're actually causing and how it's going to remove some of the extra work from the buyer side.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, I'd say that what they often don't realize is there are a lot of suppliers capable, but they just may need some outside assistance to help bridge that gap. In many cases, it isn't always known that there are solutions to these problems, and quite frankly, Kevin, that's why this team was put in place, right? And that's where we come in. We're connecting with procurement teams, partnering with them to help identify and provide relevant suppliers, those of whom are enabled and willing to connect with their e-procurement systems, and those that may need some extra assistance to get started, right? Some procurement teams even have a wish list of suppliers that they don't have the bandwidth to outreach and start that conversation to get them connected, and we can help with that as well.
Those are great points, right? And so partnering with buyers, you must be able to get some quick wins for them, right? I think just based on the existing suppliers connected in our network. So what is it that you're seeing as the quickest and easiest or lowest effort to get a win for a buyer then?
I mean, right now I'd have to say it's through our trading partner analysis because it compares the buyer's wish list of suppliers to those we know actually offer these types of capabilities because to your point, they're part of our network. And once they actually see that on paper, the path forward becomes a lot easier. It's not about transforming everything all at once, but rather identifying the easy wins with suppliers that are still causing headaches and work towards automation with them.
Absolutely, Zach. And it helps to get internal buy-in when they can say these 10 suppliers are ready to connect and it won't cost us anything. It's much easier to get leadership support. we're actively partnering with them to achieve their strategic goals. And right now, only a small percentage of their invoices are automated, which means their team spends significant time on manual processes. So by enabling punch out and automating the rest of their transactions, we can free up that time so their team can focus on higher value activities and hitting their KPIs. It's not just about the implementation itself. It's about creating measurable efficiency gains and delivering a return on investment that leadership can clearly see.
Well, exactly, right? I think driving impactful KPIs and ROIs, leadership then becomes aware and then they endorse it, right? And that's really where the successful organizations really thrive. It actually reminds me of a roundtable that I participated in one of the events, and it was mostly with CPOs. And they were asked what metric they are focused on at their level in their organization. And the most common themes were ROI, turnaround time or order processing time, and days payable outstanding. And in order to achieve this, right, you really need your suppliers. And that actually then I start to think about this term supplier enablement, and I hear that a lot, right? Everyone's saying that this is what they do. But when you actually unpack it, it's very different. So thinking about that from your perspective, what makes the process you follow different or maybe not entirely supplier enablement?
Sure. Yeah, I'll jump in. It's low lift and zero budget. We're not coming in with a platform or asking for money. We're helping teams get more out of what they already have. And because we work with so many different suppliers, we're in a unique position to connect the dots for them.
Yeah, and I mean, we're really just uncovering what's already available to them. And that's what makes it resonate. It's practical, it's fast, and it helps remove some of the friction that ultimately can free up some of their time to focus elsewhere.
So supplier enablement, if we want to use that word, is actually just bringing the most capable suppliers to a buyer's platform to help them drive efficiency and reduce time. So, with that said, you have to have some examples that you could share with us on some recent conversations you may have been having with buyers, or maybe even some successes that you've had.
Well, yeah, if I can jump in, Lisa, we recently worked with a team that had rolled out Coupa, but only had two suppliers connected, but also had an internal goal to automate with a handful of priority vendors by the end of the year. Their procurement and AP teams were limited on bandwidth, which a lot of teams are, and they were relying on OCR to upload invoices, which, as we discussed, creates a lot of delays and errors down the road. So, they were primarily looking for electronic invoicing capabilities from these suppliers, but after asking more questions, found that they were also open to punch out and certain PO coverage, from the supplier's end, but just needed help moving, forward with that work. But ultimately, we identified suppliers based on invoice volume. We confirmed which were integration ready and led that outreach. Within a month, they closed their first connection and built a clear path to onboard the rest by the end of year. And I guess for me, it just showed how a little targeted support can remove friction and help their teams unlock more value from this platform.
It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And from my side, one recent conversation that comes to mind involves a buyer who is prioritizing punch-out enablement to streamline their procurement operations. So we're collaborating with them to analyze their top suppliers and identify the best enablement options. So basically, the goal is to transition their heavily manual purchasing processes into a fully automated workflow. So by focusing on punch-out, we're not only helping them reduce errors and save time, but also enabling better spend visibility and supplier collaboration. So this conversation has been particularly exciting because it demonstrates how we can create immediate, tangible value by aligning technology with the buyer's key operational priorities.
Wow. So that's another great story. And both are great examples of success, right? And so thinking about that and your daily interactions, if you could give one piece of advice to a procurement team that is trying to improve efficiency or or find that little bit of time savings, what would it be, Lisa?
I would just say take a step back from your day to day and make a list of things that are causing friction. If it's anything we've mentioned, there are solutions that can help you achieve your goals without a huge investment.
Yeah, and I think for me, Kevin, it's just starting small, right? Even enabling a handful of suppliers can make a big difference in driving compliance and driving more spend through the platform to maximize your ROI. So again, it doesn't need to be a list of 100, 300 suppliers, right? It could be, 5 to 10 of your key suppliers that you start with, and that can really take some of the load off.
Great. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing a little bit of what you've learned so far from your conversation with buyers. And if I could kind of recap a little bit, like there is an underlying barrier, and the root cause isn't always just technology, but it could also be legacy mindsets, a heads down approach, or just lack of executive sponsorship,
Mhm.
and then sometimes an unwilling supplier base. But for buyers, there are definitely people, groups, organizations you could talk to and solutions that can help you get that ROI that you've expected from your platform. I
Yeah.
hope everybody found the session valuable today. And whether you're a buyer or supplier, many of the topics we've covered really apply to both sides of the process. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us via LinkedIn and stay tuned for more B2B buyer focused chats. Thanks.
Yeah. More to
Thank
come.
you.
Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Thanks.